we go.
All right, good luck, Lauryn.
Thank you.
Yeah, go for it.
Deep breath.
Thank you all for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, Lauren.
Great to see you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Already completed it, really.
Yep, we're almost there.
Yep.
Almost there. Hi, Dr. Feather. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Stella.
Hi,
Great to see you all.
Lauren. Good to be here.
Thank you.
Looking forward to this.
All right, well, we'll get started. There might be a few more that come on. So if everyone could just mute themselves while I'll first start by welcoming you all and thank you for joining us. And particularly welcome to Dr. Jacqueline Feather and Dr. Leslie Stupas, who are both part of Lauryn's committee, her readers. And welcome to other Veritas students and family and friends, which it appears we've got quite a crowd today, which is really lovely. And I think we had an apology from Laurie, our president. Okay, so just quickly, if everyone could just keep themselves muted while Lauren's talking. Once her presentation's finished, there'll be questions from the committee and then an opportunity to congratulate Lauryn at the end. Okay. So I'm just going to start with a little introduction and then I'll hand over. It's easy for us to enjoy the beauty of a forest or a beach and feel inspired by wild landscapes. But what about the wild that follows us home, that makes its home in and around our homes? The annoying, the spiky, the dirty, the rampant, the unbidden and the unloved aspects of nature. Lauryn's project challenges our habit of mind that is so quick to identify pests and eradicate them, and asks us to slow down and look closer. Combining storytelling, photography, and interviews with fellow gardeners, her work awakens a sensitivity to these fellow travellers and the possibilities of deeper interspecies relationality. And with that, I hand over to you, Lauryn.
Thank you for your introduction, Justine. I really appreciate it. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you all see that all right? Great. Well, thank you all so much for taking time out of, I know your very busy schedules to be with me today as I present my capstone, Watering Weeds, Partnering with Pests in Narrative Metamorphosis. Before I start my presentation, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge all of those who have helped make this project possible. Firstly, to Mukund, my fiance, thank you for your love, encouragement, and care before and throughout this journey. Thank you to my family, friends, animal companions, and the bugs and weeds who continue to teach me. A huge thanks to the 6 participants that shared their hearts and stories for this project. This work would not have been whole without you. To my incredible cohort, for your wisdom and friendship over these past years, I have learned so much from each one of you. Thank you to Dr. Lori Pye and all the wonderful teachers at Veritas for your wisdom, guidance, and for making this journey through ecological psychology possible. Your teaching has left me forever changed. My gratitude to Dr. Justine Stratton, my chair, and whose mentorship and heartful support made all the difference for this project. Thank you to Dr. Leslie Stupas and Dr. Jackie Feather for being the readers of this capstone and for all of your helpful feedback. And finally, to Dr. Robin Saltonstall, who nurtured this project from the outset and inspired me to incorporate creative forces in my work. So I wanted to kind of set the stage for this presentation. So I'm going to start with a brief overview of what ecological psychology is for the general audience. Then we'll go into an introduction of my project. We'll review some of my findings, and then I will close with opportunities to further this work in the future. So what is ecological psychology, or eco-psychology, as we like to call it? According to Dr. Lauryn Pye, we understand our planet as responsive. So we respond to our planet, and our planet in turn responds to us. We shape our world through our narratives, which are, in other words, the stories that we live our lives by. So if you could imagine a person who tells themselves that they are a kind person and that they are doing the best with what they have. Now imagine another person who feels that no matter what they do, it's just not enough. Can you sense how those two different narratives would impact how that person shows up in their day-to-day lives? I'll share another example. So our skin, which many of us understand as a distinct barrier, is actually a permeable surface. So if I were to touch a liquid or a pond, as we see in this picture, within 7 seconds, that water would be absorbed into my skin. And that same barrier sloughs off when we touch things, including when we walk through the air. So everywhere I go, I'm leaving behind literal bits of Lauryn, just as you do wherever you go. Not literal bits of me, but literal bits of yourself. But ecological psychology is more than what is physical. Our narratives, our words, the way we carry ourselves, the voices that we story our experiences through, and even our feelings about the morning commute stretch into the world that we make contact with. In other words, our narratives shape who and what we bring into the world. And in turn, the world shapes our narratives. At its core, eco-psychology is working to dissolve boundaries between the interior and the exterior, and instead look at the many different types of interactions between relationships in order to understand psyche. Ecological psychology is imploring us to examine our narratives, these stories that we live our lives by, and to hold ourselves responsible for how we affect these systems that we are a part of, and then to work to change our narratives so that through our lives we can cultivate conditions that allow all beings to flourish, not just human ones. And this narrative work, this changing of the stories that we live our lives by, is done through 5 eco-psychological principles that are described by Dr. Lauryn Pye. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time going through those with you before I jump into my project, so I can kind of set the stage of how I approach this research and what we were looking at. So on this slide, we're going to start with energy, and you'll see that there's pictures for each of the principles. And there'll be an example of how it is psychological and then an example of it ecologically. So we'll start with energy and end with relationship. So energy is expressed by all living beings and Earth systems and processes, each of which depend on a constant exchange of energy. Psychologically, we can see this in our attitudes, our behaviors, our narratives, again, those stories that we're living our lives by, and our beliefs. Ecologically, we see this in examples like wind rustling leaves, or the process of photosynthesis where plants are converting sunlight into food, and our biogeochemical cycles. Diversity allows ecosystems to flourish because of the many different life ways that help create resilience in that ecosystem, even when faced with disturbance and destabilization, which for all of us alive know that things come up that do disturb and destabilize our calm lives. So because of that diversity, we're able to respond to that change better, to react to it. Psychologically, this can look like adaptability in the face of stress and adversity, or having a curious mindset, wanting to learn, and even comfort in ambiguity or comfort in the unknown. Ecological examples are old growth forests, coral reefs, rivers, places where we see a great number of organisms thrive within a relatively stable environment. And I don't mean stable in the sense that it's not changing, but again, it's this idea that it's able to adapt and respond to change, and again, find some semblance of balance. Decay and renewal. In decay and renewal, we understand that all matter and energy are used and recycled, and that nothing is wasted. just like how our bodies come from dead stars, and eventually our bodies will return to the soil and become something else, maybe a bug or a weed. Waste, however, does occur psychologically. And this occurs when we do not examine these harmful stories that we're telling ourselves, our harmful, detrimental narrative patterns. So psychologically, this process can look like learning to break down those detrimental attitudes, behaviors, and narratives, and beginning to work through the more unconscious aspects of our narrative landscape. Ecologically, we see this in examples like fungi digesting wood, or worms creating compost from our kitchen scraps and turning it into really wonderful soil that we can grow more food in. Change is inevitable, and it occurs both ecologically and psychologically. And this transformation can create opportunity, but it also can create crisis. Here, we can resist narrative change or embrace the process of psychological evolution, which is what changing our narratives does. It changes who and what we are and how we show up in the world. So psychologically, we see this in new narratives, new attitudes, new behaviors, right? Changing how we appear and how we act and respond. Ecologically, we see this in caterpillar metamorphosis, so a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. We see this in the process of evolution, and also events like a volcanic eruption, where we have a very explosive event occur that forever changes the topography of that mountain and landscape. Now, lastly is relationship, and relationship undergirds all life and all processes. And it's an understanding that we live on a responsive planet from which we come from and eventually we return to. And this isn't to imply that we are one with nature, like we might imagine a particle of water in the ocean, but rather that we are integral parts of larger systems that we are nested within. So we can think about this as like a niche in an ecosystem, or even a tax accountant in a corporation. We maintain our unique selves while actively participating in the processes of these greater wholes, meaning the functioning of the planet or the functioning of a company, like a tax accountant will help to do. Psychologically, humans are of nature, not separate, and human culture is not separate from nature. They are constituents. So ecologically, we see this in examples like mutualism. An example of that would be the relationship between aphids and ants. Ants tend to farm aphids because aphids excrete this really sweet substance called honeydew, and they love to eat it. And so they'll help take care of the aphids, and the aphids in turn will feed the ants. We also see this in coevolution and holobionts. And if you're not familiar with what a holobiont is a human or animal. Humans are animals, but just for the sake of this example, it is a distinct thing like you and me, but we're actually made up of an assemblage of organisms. So us, the living thing that we interact with, and our microbiome. And we cannot survive without each other. The human can't be alive without their microbiome, and the microbiome cannot be alive without their human. All right, so thank you for bearing with me as we walked through some of the principles and what ecopsychology is. So jumping into my project, it explores the often overlooked yet vital relationships between humans and pests in suburban and urban environments. By uncovering personal attitudes and experiences, this project challenges dominant narratives of human separation from and control over nature. My aim is to facilitate narratives of reciprocity and care that acknowledge our interdependent livelihoods by encouraging participants to share their experiences and relationships with the land. Through story sharing, the participants and I cultivated narratives that reimagine these relationships with pests, or as I like to call them, opportunistic beings. These stories encourage a shift from human-centric behaviors towards relational ones that are characterized by mutual understanding and stewardship. And this underscores the potential of storytelling in shaping and reshaping ecological attitudes and behaviors. ultimately supporting a recognition of humanity's inseparability and ultimate dependence on the more than human world. This project elucidates how narratives are co-created through such human-land engagement and open us to feeling differently and diversifying our perspectives. It highlights that changing relationships with pests is a linchpin for transforming other detrimental narratives and their practices in suburban ecologies. My project argues that by enveloping our curiosity, awe, and respect around pests, we create conditions where entire ecosystems can flourish, conditions that support all life, not just human ones. And as you've probably noticed, pests often thrive where humans live. And I argue that this doesn't mean that we need to live in constant conflict with them. Our killable companions are here for a reason, and it's often a result of many factors. One being the way that Western cultures live, that are often extractive and the result of widespread ecosystem destabilization. So instead of blaming our pests for discomfort and our feelings of fear and lack of safety, I challenge us to consider how their lives might reflect imbalances within our own. Like this small pile of dirt atop our cement pad. From above, it would be difficult to see this because it's covered by a tiny plant. But when you stoop down, something surprising appears. This dirt mound was actually built by a colony of ants around a strawberry runner. And strawberry runners are shoots that come from strawberry plants that allow that plant to grow and spread. But a strawberry runner would never be able to grow on top of a cement pad without the help of these ants. And if you look closely, hopefully the picture's clear enough for you all, you can see a variety of seeds, pine needles, dirt, and even sprouting seedlings that are coming from this ant mound. So I wanted to understand the following with this research. How can we change the perception that humans are separate from the wilds that we live in? How does personal involvement with tending the land challenge these narratives that humans are exceptional and separate from nature? What are these weeds and insects actually doing in human settlements, and how are we, humans, helping them thrive? And finally, what are some examples of pests that challenge this narrative that they're unwanted and don't belong, and where they're actually considered helpful in some way? At the heart of these research questions, I'm working to dematerialize the split between human and the external, between human and the natural world. And I did this by focusing on, suburban and urban areas where many of us find these species and where most people can agree they're a nuisance. Here, I found that there was a lot of potential not only to change our understanding of these beings in our lives and about ourselves, but also the behaviors that arise from our feelings of fear, disgust, annoyance, and discomfort when we cross paths with them. By transforming our relationship with pests, we can open the door to reimagining our connection with the broader natural world, forging pathways away from extraction and towards mutualism. As participants engaged with their suburban ecologies, their established narrative patterns began to break down, and this led to new understandings of their relationship with the more than human world. This process was often catalyzed by direct experience with the land and reflection, which mirrored the ecological processes of succession, where disturbance creates opportunities for new life and perspectives, like we were just talking about with the ecopsychological principle of change. The transformation in participants' perspectives on pests, shifting from narratives of separation and control to those of curiosity, reciprocity, and care, exemplified the decay and renewal of detrimental narratives. And each participant, of course, presented a uniquely complex relationship with their land, and they ranged from feelings of guilt, frustration, alienation, and control to joy, comfort, curiosity, and responsiveness, and even care. And despite these inherent differences in their land-human kinships, they reveal evolving dynamics in which the land is playing an intimate role. Across the participants of this study, there was a common thread. Each described that this awareness and attunement to the natural world was linked to early childhood experiences, like learning to pick fruit off of the vine from their grandmother, or feeling the sense of vastness in the shaded woods, creating a compost pile to protect the worms on their parents' land, eating meals off of banana leaves that their mother grew in their backyard, collecting shower water during an extended drought to water their plants, and making friends with the forest in their backyard where they would spend hours playing alongside their dog, many of which were connected to their relationships with family and with the food that they grew and ate. One participant said, "I think food is the direct relationship between my understanding of how I've experienced the land as an ecology and how I've built relationships with it through time and the connection with seeing plants as food and having these interactions with them, not just in the grocery store, but in the wild, where I can pick off fruit off of a vine or crack off asparagus." For the participants, narrative change echoed early life experience, which laid the foundation for continued ecological awareness and shifts in perspective. Another commonality between participants was that the act of directly caring for the land changed how they understood the necessity of other beings' health. One participant noted, "I have this greater sense of vibrancy of all these materials, and that matter is mattering. It can make me tear up. It's like you feel this remembering, an ecological memory." Another described their experiences with land has taught them to slowly let go of their need to control it. There is no creating alone. It not only requires curiosity, but inspires curiosity. It requires patience, and gifts come from that patience. One participant, as they recalled stewarding their backyard habitat, said that it felt similar to their role as a parent, and that a psilocybin experience helped them see that. And I quote, "We are all living different lives, but at the same time connected. Now I see their health as my health. You have to be able to heal yourself well enough to heal others. And by healing this land, I have also healed myself." Now, there were some differences in participant responses, and one in particular I'm going to pull into this conversation today with all of you. This participant was an immigrant to the United States and touched on something very relevant to current issues in the United States as we witness the rounding up and deportation of migrating human communities. He wrote, "I am pleasantly surprised by the ingenuity of these plants and insects' ability to hitch a ride for dozens of miles. I used to be indifferent towards them, but now I come from a place of curiosity. I flinch when I hear people talking about using weed killers. And as an immigrant to the United States, I cannot help but resonate with how unwelcome weeds must feel, how resilient they need to be to survive, and how they harbor no ill will towards their neighbors. They also want a better shot at life." And it serves as a striking metaphor for the parallels between the treatment of humans, plants, and insects by a domineering cultural presence, who are often displaced by a variety of factors. Relocation for humans and more than humans come with challenges, and oftentimes they don't choose to relocate, they're relocated for forces outside of their control. These challenges can be navigating new sociocultural narratives, navigating structural barriers like racism, speciesism, and things like chemical and physical boundaries. And we see examples like walls, borders, herbicides, pesticides, and even systematic violence. And these challenges are fostered by dominant socio-political groups that shape and continue to affect psychological and ecological systems. It's these power dynamics that shape policies and societal narratives, influencing migration patterns and environmental interactions that directly impact the ability of all beings to flourish. They affect our diversity and our ability to respond to change. And there's a lot of change going on in our world right now. Our treatment of weeds and bugs is an opportunity to learn how we might build empathetic and attuned awarenesses towards those that are different than ourselves. and to ultimately compost and move away from this us against them narrative that has been causing so much harm, and to move from this fear of the other and into a narrative that we are all in this together. For whether we acknowledge it or not, that is the nature of life on Earth. We thrive because of our differences. So what are these little and sometimes larger beings doing in the homes that we live? What I've learned is that what is considered a pest is a matter of one's physical and narrative positioning. And I'll share a little story from last year. Our cat had discovered a family of mice in our backyard that had made its home in a patch of undisturbed weedy plants that I had been watering and tending to for this project. And when she dropped that first mouse on the living room rug, my instinct was to separate them so I could catch and release the mouse and then lock the cat inside so that the mouse family had a chance to relocate. But of course, being the agile, tiny body critter that it was, we were completely unsuccessful in trying to capture it. And very quickly, I started to have feelings of fear about finding poop around the house or holes in my clothing or food thievery or even a growing mouse family. And it quickly obscured this cute image that I had of a scared mouse. And we spent hours tearing apart our house unsuccessfully and eventually decided to wait it out because we just could not find this poor little scared mouse. And it was fascinating for me to see this sudden shift in myself, a self-proclaimed pest friend turned paranoid human that was willing to spend hours ripping their house apart to rid themselves of one tiny little mouse. And it reminded me of a recent conversation that I had with a pest control inspector that I had called because I found out that our neighbors were spraying pesticides around their home about 3 feet away from our property. And they said something that really stuck with me, and that was that pests are only pests when they come into our homes. And I was surprised about their work to try to minimize the harm that they're causing to the larger environment by localizing where they're spraying chemicals. That next day, I heard a skittering sound in our kitchen, and there was that tiny little mouse pressing its paws against our door leading out to the backyard. So we opened it, stood back, and with an apparent nonchalance, not to anthropomorphize this little mouse, it walked right out into the yard. I think it wanted out of the house just as much as we wanted it out of the house. Pests put into perspective and question our supremacy, our borders, our traps, and while their presences may not comfort us in the way that a soft blanket or a purring cat might, they are doing incredible things. Ants help with nutrient cycling by distributing dead plant and animal matter and waste into fertile soil, feeding other bugs and birds, and dispersing seeds of plants, as we saw with that strawberry runner. Dandelions are entirely edible. They aerate the soil, feed pollinators, and treat chronic skin and liver disorders. And they also clean the soil of heavy metals like copper and zinc. Flies, like bees, pollinate a huge range of flowering plants and trees, and they are crucial in decomposition by breaking down dead animal and feces and are helping researchers get insights into pathogen immunities. Fringed willow herbs, which are one of my personal favorite plants, are endemic to North America, and they flower throughout most of the growing season. So they're incredibly helpful in the transition seasons in and out of winter for pollinators as they come out of hibernation or go into it. They also help stabilize the soil and have anti-inflammatory properties. European huntsman spiders prey on many other pests, including cockroaches, aphids, and are also prey to birds and wasps. So they're a very important part of the larger food system. Creeping thistles also bloom throughout much of the growing season and feed goldfinches with their seeds, and their deep roots help break up compacted soils. And finally, Queen's Anne's lace, which pops up all around our neighborhood in Portland, is an extremely hardy plant with a lot of medicinal properties that help aid in human health. But they also attract a large range of pollinator insects that can feed simultaneously on its large blooms. They are drought tolerant and they thrive without human help. So you can probably sense from these examples, opportunistic beings in and around our homes and lives are doing much needed work in our ecosystems. And there is much more that is yet to be discovered about how they are helping endemic ecologies reestablish themselves in damaged and disturbed habitats. As humanity moves deeper to acknowledgement of our interdependence with plants, insects, and arachnids, and their sentience, their intelligence, ethical guidelines need to be established to protect plants and insects in the same way that we protect human and animal research subjects. Developing an ethical framework will help ensure that scientific practices remain responsible and respectful. Some future areas of research include ecological restoration studies, so continuing to investigate how opportunistic plants play a role as early successional partners on disturbed lands. This research could reveal that these species create favorable conditions for the rewilding of native species and potentially accelerate the recovery of disturbed ecosystems. Another area is policy advocacy, so working towards the passage of legislation that bans or restricts the use of chemical killing agents in land management practices. And this effort could promote novel approaches to vegetation control and also stop additional harm to already disturbed ecologies. And lastly, community engagement, exploring the potential of guerrilla gardening as a grassroots method for urban ecosystem restoration, narrative change, and community involvement in environmental stewardship. Through these proposed paths and others yet formed, my goal is to foster and deepen our understanding and compassion for the natural world and to help others change their narratives around pests. For as I have come to understand, all beings are participants in Earth's processes, each playing a necessary role in the grand choreography of dynamic, diverse, and mutualistic life. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. That was a really wonderful visual display of all the hard work you've put in over these past 12 months. It's really lovely to see. I'm going to hand over now to your readers, Dr. Feather and Dr. Stupas, to make some comments and questions.
Who would you like to go first?
Jackie, why don't you go ahead first?
Okay. What a beautiful presentation, Lauren. I really enjoyed reading your work, and this just brought it to life in another way.
Thank you.
Incredibly intelligent work. And of course, I became very aware. I've been very aware in my garden since I read your piece. Well, it's all very well, but I've got to go for killing our fig tree, so it's a hard one to reconcile sometimes.
Yes.
But I'm also aware, I was just in the hardware store the other day and I saw all these bottles of Roundup. And, it still amazes me that people use this poison. So my question is, as an ecological psychologist, how would you work in the wider, and I mean corporate community, to change attitudes, how would you work on that scale using these principles in your work?
That's a great question. And I don't know that I would have one approach. I think, for me personally, what has been helpful is understanding that ecosystem that I'm stepping into, to understand what are the reasons behind them using these chemicals. Because oftentimes I think people aren't doing things to harm others. They're doing things to create a sense of safety or comfort around themselves. So I think, a lot of it is understanding the motivations behind using chemical killing agents, and then using that as an opportunity to educate them ecopsychologically about how we're so interdependent in the natural world, and also sharing the loads of research that's come out specifically about glyphosate. I had done some research pulling USDA data because they have a database where it will show all the herbicides and pesticides and fungicides that they apply to agricultural land each year. And it was within, I mean, billions of pounds of glyphosate that they're applying just in the United States every single year. And it's a massive problem because it's now shown to be a known carcinogen, not just for humans, but for all life. So I think, it's a big task ahead of us, but a lot of it is understanding where people are coming from and why, and trying to change their perspective about their connection with the natural world.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate the thought, that the understanding that particular ecosystem, the corporate ecosystem, and its motivation.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope you get on to it.
Thank you.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Thanks. I really enjoyed your presentation. And like Jackie, I've had that experience as well in the last, well, since I read your capstone, of just a real different awareness, not just of pests, but of my own tendencies to put myself above them, and that human supremacy narrative that can be so damaging. So one of the things I found in your capstone is that you really did challenge this kind of narrative, not just of human supremacy, but even of like individualism. And I really have had a deep kind of bodily experience of that. Carrying this awareness out into my yard and my garden, and seeing what's going on out there. And I think I remember telling you that in your capstone that, I really thought your writing was very well suited for it, because one of the things that it did, your writing was very tightly woven. And what it constantly did was force me in the reading to be in the outside world instead of just prioritizing my internal experience. And that was a really profound shift in the reading. I'm curious if you had that shift at some point, if that shift came in the writing, or is it the topic that helped that come about? Because you carry that awareness and wisdom so much into your work, that I feel that you have that awareness of the outside world not being less than, or not being, or the past not being less than. So I was just curious about that, if like how that narrative shift happened for you, or if there was some experience that shifted, like how you understood through ecological psychology that the internal experience of pests, really helps to offer a full awareness of their place in the outside world.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that and noticing that, because I didn't completely notice that in myself until you pointed it out. But I had an experience before I joined this program where I had been working at a corporate job for many years, and I had thought that that was kind of my end all be all path. And I had let go a lot of myself in that process, and I had found myself in this period of burnout and just not well. And so I took a break from work. And in that process of getting reacquainted with myself, I found that this newly freed time, I just wanted to be outside. And so I was spending a lot of time just observing what was going on around me. And that's kind of what led me to Veritas in the first place, was this wanting to understand more of what was going on around me, because I noticed that every single day I was going outside, I would see something that I'd never seen before. And that experience has still been the case. Every time I go outside, I see something different. Um, and my cohort was a huge inspiration as well. I remember, I think it was Courtney that had presented very early on about a snail that had come to her, and her experience just witnessing this snail and interacting with it, and seeing a wasp or a bee clean its face and how cute it was. And Nichelle had presented about dandelions, which had really opened my perspective about what they were doing in the natural world. And so it was a culmination of a lot of different experiences. But ultimately, like my participants, that foundation was set with my childhood experiences with my family. You know, my family took me camping when I was probably, I think even before I was one. And so I was, and they were avid gardeners. And so I was always outside, you know, interacting with the world. And I think, you know, a culmination of me being able to slow down and stepping back from something that I really wasn't enjoying, and then interacting with all the wonderful beings that some of them are here today, have really kind of helped me decenter myself in this process.
Mm, yeah, I really appreciate that. Such a necessary process, and you know, we just don't step into it sometimes until we are. I mean, there's something that takes us out of ourselves where we're really willing to
Mhm.
experience ourselves differently and the world around us. I have seen that actually coming out of your cohort, especially in reading both of those, the two capstones that you just mentioned, but that really there's this awareness coming out of your cohort, that I think is doing an exceptional job of challenging these narratives. Um, yeah, so I appreciate your awareness of how that happened for you and what that brought forward. Really speaks to the importance of that for all of us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
It's an ongoing process.
yeah, absolutely. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. So, well, Lauren, thinking about what I might ask you today, I reflected on some of our conversations about gardening and its challenges, and the fact that this work requires a real shift, a slowing down, you know, developing the habit of mind of observing first rather than rushing in to fix something or control something, but to be able to pause and observe and, you know, maybe think twice before doing anything. And, you know, and that's a habit of mind. It's not like a decision you make once. You know, you don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be aware now. You know, it's every day, every time, you know, you're out there in your garden, you make a choice. And I know I don't always successfully make that choice, you know, to be present and really closely observing. So my question regarding that is developing that habit of mind. Do you see that translating into other aspects of your life? Do you notice that sort of capacity to to pause and observe influencing other parts of your world?
Yeah, certainly. And that's such a wonderful question. And I will say that, you know, I still struggle sometimes with, you know, stepping into this mindset of I need to get something done and I'm just going to focus on getting this done. So I'm, you know, I haven't fully composted this narrative, right? I'm not coming from an ivory tower preaching at you that this is how you should do things. But um I think what's really helped me is, and Lori taught us a lot about this, was trying to separate beings from their behavior and try to understand um, more of the context of what's going on. And I've noticed it a lot in my working life because work oftentimes can be very triggering, especially in the corporate world, which I am now back in. Um, that I've noticed that I'm better able to pause and slow down and not take things as personally, um, and try to not necessarily put myself in other shoes, but understand that there's probably a lot of other energies and mindsets and narratives that are going on behind the scenes that I'm not fully aware of yet. And how can I try to get in tune with that so we can shift things? And so, again, I think it really comes to just slowing down, having patience, trying not to take things as personally, and extending kindness and grace to myself and to other people, firstly.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Yeah. I highly recommend gardening to everyone. I just love it. I love immersing myself, and I think there's so much wisdom and so many lessons we can learn from plants and other species. And it's great when you are receptive to what that offers and then how it can positively impact in your life across this in other aspects. We've got a few moments, so would anyone else like to make a comment or question for Lauryn? Feel free, anyone.
I can go as someone having the privilege to live with Lauryn. I will say a lot of what she's learned has directly, tangibly impacted my life and changed the way I show up as well. I'm a very go, go, go type of person. I'm always looking for the next thing I'm supposed to be doing and worried about what I'm not doing. And Lauryn really helps me kind of step away, be present. She'll drag me out to the garden to show me this random insect she found, and it's always something incredible that I would never have thought twice to look at. Or I guess I'm starting to stop and look at stuff more now, and I can definitely see how she's impacted dozens of lives, if not hundreds, through all the work she's put into composting her narratives at Viridis. And I'm slowly learning to do the same. So I'm very proud of her and all she's achieved. And I think it's going to have a massive impact on the world. And I can't wait to see where this is going to go.
Thank you.
I have to say that very good job, by the way, Lauryn.
Thank you.
So you could put a lot of work into this. She's made us aware of our own area a lot more than we ever knew. She would come over and get a flashlight out at night and go through our yard and find interesting creatures that we had no idea even existed and take pictures of them and try to bring an awareness about our own environment that even though we do work out in our environment, we weren't really digging in like she was. So we have had a good interaction on awareness of what's going on. She's told me pretty straightforwardly at times that what I should be doing is not that. And so I've curbed some of my practices that we've done in gardening over the years and have tried to be more mindful about being more natural and not as invasive. We have a section of our yard that we don't really use that she emphasized the importance of do not disturb that area, whether it's raking leaves or pulling weeds or stuff, because it's in a nice, unused, untrafficked area. Just to let nature do whatever it's doing. And I see the value of that where I hadn't before, because it was, I'm kind of cosmetically minded. We like to garden and trim our trees and keep things clean and mow the yards and stuff. And so it opened my eyes a lot to different ways of just interacting and looking at what's around me. And I think she's continually educating me on those types of things. So it's just pretty cool.
Thank you, Dad.
And I'm
Appreciate
glad I'm glad that some of the things we did when you were younger have left an impact on you.
Oh, certainly.
I think the connection to nature,
Mhm.
being out in the open in the woods and stuff really makes you feel part of and you want to understand it better.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for you both for teaching me about that so early and continuing to bring Evan and I back.
Yeah.
So
Well,
something I love to do today.
one thing I must say is since you've been in doing all of this, I haven't killed any house spiders.
Oh,
I and you know me and spiders, so I
Yeah.
find a way to get it on my Webster or whatever and get it out of the house.
Yeah,
So
we've been saving a lot of
I
spiders.
even saved a little moth the other day that was in the sink. It got wet. I'm like, oh no. And so I got it and I took it outside and it flew away.
That makes my heart happy. Thank you.
Yeah. And so you've
too.
changed the way I look at things because I don't like things like that in my house, but I find a way to remove them and let them carry on. So thank you for all your hard work, sweetheart. We love you.
Love you too. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
There's something, incredibly powerful about what you've done, Lauren, in the fact that it's so immediate to everyone. Like everyone lives somewhere. Everyone is surrounded. You don't have to go find a mountain or travel or anything to practice this awareness. And you can see already how it's impacted people in your life. And so I just want to congratulate you on pulling together such a beautiful piece of work that's not only beautiful, but incredibly impactful as well. So congratulations,
Thank you.
Dr. Lauryn Hart.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Woo.
Congratulations, Lauren.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Happy
Dr.
for
Hart.
you. Well done. Yes.
Thank you all. I'm so thankful
Yeah.
you all are here with me today.
So relatable. This will really continue to grow.
Thank you. Yeah, I plan to continue to foster these seeds whatever I can.
I know your brother is online. I don't know if he's got him or not, but
No need to put them on the spot.
that was the perfect opportunity to do that.
Where are you, son?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening.
There we go.
Thank you.
Shamed him into it.
I have something that happened. Can you guys hear me? I don't have my camera on.
Yeah.
Something amazing happened. We had a little visit from the insect kingdom. The minute this began, I live very near Lauryn, and I'm of a like mind. And the minute she began her program, after saying thank you to people, and I've been here over 20 years, the largest beetle I have ever seen sitting right next to the computer and never left. It is still here. And never happened in 20 years. In fact, I've seen very few beetles. And the minute it arrived, I thought, there's the insect kingdom coming to listen.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Love that. Love that.
I photographed it for you, Lauren.
Thank you.
And a symbol of eternal life. Beetles.
Everything is one, so there is some relationship with this strange incident. Well, a little sign, a little thumbs up.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, maybe the beetle learned something about us and is going to go back.
It's a spy.
He can educate everybody around him too, or her, whoever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it realizes that we're more conscious of what they're doing,
You only hope.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for
Thank
coming along today.
That was
And thanks, Lauren,
marvelous.
again.
Thank you. Beautiful, Lauren.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And enjoy your celebrations.
I will.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for inviting me. Bye-bye.
I really appreciate it.
Bye, Lauren. So much love to you.
Yeah, you too, Nichelle. Talk to you soon. Thank you for being here.
All right, honey, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Love you. Bye.
Bye, honey.
That's Lauren.
Thanks, Evan.
That was
Love
great.
You.
Love you too.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Thank you again, Justine.
My pleasure. That went really well.
Thank you.
Really nice to, the way your parents spoke and everything as well. It's really lovely to have that.
Yeah, it was.
Friends and family involved. So have a great time tonight.
Thank you. Well, have a great Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I appreciate
And
it.
I'll be in touch as well about you being a guest speaker in our course in, I think we said September, didn't we? Was
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I'd be happy.
Anyway. Okay. Fantastic.
Talk soon.
Okay. See
Bye.
you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.